have a price on their heads, or more particularly, their horns. They're as valuable as gold. Poachers are hunting them to the brink of extinction, and that's forced those saving them to go to the most extraordinary lengths. In the thick of the battle, our guest reporter, Kerri Kennerley.
This is what it's come to. The most radical animal rescue ever.
It's a full-on war at the moment.
A battle to outsmart and outgun the rhino hunters.
It's the last chance as far as this whole species is concerned.
The stakes have never been higher, or the risks greater.
Go, go, go.
Nowhere is this threat clearer than in Kenya. I've come to a wildlife sanctuary, purpose-built to save a species on the verge of collapse.
It was set up specially to house the last 4 remaining potentially reproductively active northern white rhinos that are left.
4 only.
This way?
Richard Vine runs the reserve. If they do not mate, will they be extinct?
They will be extinct if they don't mate. It would be the first major mammalian species to go extinct for a very long period of time.
A private army guards the perimeter. Inside, the northern white rhino. There are 8 left in the world. Only 4 of those are able to breed, and they're here. It is extraordinary to think this is one of the last surviving males to save an extinct species.
Absolutely, it is. It is.
He seems so gentle.
Just be a little bit careful, because sometimes they get startled. So it's always good to just keep up a gentle
Have a healthy respect.
Have a healthy respect, yeah.
There are other species of rhino under the protection of Richard and his team.
I wouldn't want to be outside right now.
Look at you. Look at you. Wow. That is one of the most amazing experiences of my life. This close, literally, I could have patted him. He could have eaten me.
Right now, the only way to secure rhino populations is to have armed security with a high capacity to operate both in daylight and at night to deter poaching. If you left rhinos in an unprotected area now, I would give them no longer than a week or 2 before they would be killed.
This is what the slaughter is all about. I've got about just under 1 kilo on the market. This could be worth as much as 60,000 American dollars, which per gram can make it more expensive than cocaine or gold, perhaps. It's only keratin. It's like our fingernails or a horse's hoof. No medicinal value whatsoever. So it's so obscene to think that a species can be wiped out because of greed and because of superstition.
It's all driven by demand for rhino horn for use in traditional medicines, particularly in Vietnam, but also in China.
And more rhino killing is happening in South Africa than anywhere else. Nearly 300 slaughtered so far this year. I'm travelling to a private farm on the outskirts of Kruger National Park to witness a radical approach to saving the rhino.
They are my favourite animals in the world, partly because they are underdogs, partly because they are persecuted and they need help more than any other animal.
Rhino rancher John Hume comes across as a passionate conservationist.
I'm devastated every time I lose a rhino.
But John is also an entrepreneur. As the biggest rhino farmer in the world, he believes the only way to save them is to harvest their horns.
The dart's ready. I'm going to get the rifle.
And that's exactly what he's doing with his herd of 700 rhino. These are southern white rhino, and they're the ones that they will dehorn, and they do it regularly.
Oh, she's by herself. Yeah, let's do that one.
We are now dehorning every year.
Why?
To make it less rewarding for the poacher to poach our animals.
Poachers, they go all the way in here with the machete. And often, the rhino's not dead when they do it. It's just absolutely horrifying.
Disgraceful.
Yeah.
Does it change their behaviour?
Not at all. It does not change their behaviour one scratch. They still fight, as rhinos do, but they inflict less damage on each other in the fight with a blunt horn.
Dehorning, is that the answer?
I am quite convinced if I had not dehorned, I would have had 5, 6, 10 times as many rhinos poached.
John's hornless rhinos are worth far less to poachers. How much are the shavings worth?
The shavings are worth around about 3,000 US.
Where do you bank it?
Good question.
And this is the last we see of the horn.
Gold.
It's driven to an undisclosed location.
We store them in banks all over the country, and that's not easy either. I don't allow my staff to keep any on the farms.
Why?
Because of a security risk.
What would happen?
They can very easily be murdered for a horn, very easily.
John can't legally sell his rhino horn, but he's hoping one day he can, which will make him an even wealthier man. Some people think you're profiteering from it.
Well, what a pity for the rhino that we can't let people profiteer from him, because that's the problem. Everybody tells you a rhino is worth more dead than alive. That is one way you would get him to be worth more alive than dead.
But there's another approach to protecting rhinos. Keeping their horns by giving them wings. Flying them out of danger to remote and heavily guarded private reserves.
We came under a lot of criticism initially. You know, how cruel could we be by lifting them up by their ankles like that? But, you know, an animal is in proportion to what it can take, and whether you're a mouse or a dog or a horse, you can be lifted by the ankles without creating too much damage.
Jacques Flamond and his team are breeding new populations of black rhinos.
The evidence is there that we haven't harmed the animals. All the animals got up without even limping, and we've had 2 calves from those animals very shortly after they were released.
Go.
The project's been going for about 9 years, and in that time we've created 7 new populations, and we've got an 8th one in the pipeline later this year.
As incredible as the flying rhinos are, back in Kenya, the story of those last northern white rhinos is equally remarkable.
This area.
And it's being written with the help of Alistair Lucas, an investment banker from Melbourne. Why did you get involved in this project?
The last chance for these animals to ever exist on this planet was to get these animals from the Czech Republic and get them to here.
These rhinos were raised in a zoo 6,000 kilometres away in the Czech Republic. When all their wild relatives in Africa became extinct, they became the species' only hope of recovery. Alistair helped fund a bold plan to bring the rhinos back home. You were here when the rhinos arrived from that Czech zoo. Tell me what that experience was like.
Well, look, it was a real buzz. The first guy out, old Sudan, he just sort of poked his head out, and he needed a bit of a push. But perhaps I was imagining it, but it just seemed that he was saying, I'm home again. He'd come to Europe when he was 4 years old, and now he was late 30s, near the end of his life, and he was breathing African air again. It was a wonderful feeling.
He is a glorious creature. He's a
great
big
animal.
boy. This is Alistair's first visit back.
Well, this is fantastic to see.
And he has breaking news.
Well, we think that Najen and Fatu, the two girls, we've got our fingers crossed that they're both pregnant. We won't know for some months. Their gestation is about 18 months. So I'm hopeful that in about a year's time I can be sitting here and showing you two rhino calves.
So does that mean you might be carrying around little baby rhino photographs in your wallet?
Absolutely, absolutely.
The big hope is that one day these rare rhinos will recover and again roam the wild.
Having hundreds of guns running around the place to protect rhinos is not the long-term answer. Neither do I think legalization of the trade is a long-term answer. What is a long-term answer is to persuade people that actually that horn that grows on the end of a rhino's nose is not worth what they're currently paying for it, and they'd be much better off going to a doctor and using modern medicine to cure the various different ailments they currently perceive are treatable with rhino horn.
Kerri and Kennerley reporting for us there. Coming up next, country music legend Glenn Campbell.